Did you know that you can prepay for your funeral? You sure can. And in this video, I'm going to go over how you can purchase a prepaid funeral plan and if it is a good investment, okay? And so if you are new to me, to my channel, or to any of my content in social media land, my name is Katrice-Daniels. I am a licensed health and a life insurance broker. And I am also the principal broker of the K. Daniels Insurance Agency, where the mission is to close the insurance coverage gap for African Americans. Okay, and so here on this channel, I teach African Americans, one, how to use their health insurance to reduce their out-of-pocket health costs, and two, how to ensure that their family is financially taken care of from beyond the grave. Okay. And so let's jump into it. So a prepaid funeral plan, okay? You can prepay for your funeral ahead of time, and it's made with the funeral home, okay? Now, prepaid funeral plans provide a way for people to pay for their funeral arrangements before they pass away. And it's for people who want to spare their loved ones from having to make decisions and experience financial stress while grieving, okay? You have no idea how much of a burden is lifted off of you when you are planning a funeral, knowing that you have the money to pay for what it is that you need for the funeral, okay? Now, some experts say that these type of plans may end up costing you way more than you would have paid for an average funeral after fees and other charges have been calculated, okay? But we're going to jump into that here today, okay? Now, in a nutshell, prepaid funeral plans are plans that you plan and you pay for how you want your funeral to be, okay? The policies can range anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000, and you specify the exact amount you want and you lock in the price, okay? You pay the funeral home directly, or you can pay through a prepaid contract provider. The funeral home is the only one with access to this money. And now, if an estate pays the prepaid funeral costs, then the expenses may be tax deductible, okay? And there are financial risks associated with a prepaid funeral, okay? Now, let's highlight the part where I said that the funeral expenses may be tax deductible, okay? Now, most funeral expenses are not tax deductible if they're paid for by an individual, okay? However, if the expenses are paid for by an estate, then the estate will not have to pay taxes, okay? Then it will be tax deductible, okay? So it will have to be paid through an estate account, and the account has to say the estate of, and then whoever the deceased person is, okay? But before you do that, you do want to consult with a tax professional or someone who is familiar with the IRS laws on estate tax, okay? All right. Now, should you prepay for your funeral expenses, okay? And so, although purchasing a prepaid funeral plan from a funeral home could seem like a great, thing, because you are, making sure that your last final expenses are covered, there are, more financially savvy ways to pay for your burial costs, okay? And so a lot of experts, they do agree that there are a lot of risks associated with prepaid funeral plans and working with the funeral home directly, okay? there can be things like, if, say, the funeral home closes, okay, and then you've paid for this plan, the funeral home is no longer there, and so, your money is gone, okay. There isn't a whole lot of regulatory oversight over prepaid funeral plans, okay, and so, people just be out here doing whatever they feel, they big enough and grown enough to do. They can up the price, like really skyrocket the price. You also have to think about inflation. If you bought a prepaid funeral home plan back in 1980, okay, here we are in 2024, you have to account for inflation as well, okay. And so there's quite a few things that, while it may sound like it would be a good gesture, unless if you are somebody who maybe, say, you have a terminal illness and, they only give you 6 months to a year to live, you don't have any insurance, and so, you want to make sure that your funeral at least is covered. It may be a good option for you, but all in all, overall, I personally don't think, as an agent, don't think that they are something you would get for long term. If you buying it today to have it for, say, 30 years or so later, okay. Now, the types of things that these policies do cover are the funeral home services, the casket, the flowers, the transportation, and anything else that you may require for your service, okay? Because what you do is you sit down and you're basically designing your how you want your funeral to go. So that would be the obituary, paying for the church, if you need to pay for the church, or if you're going to have it there in the funeral home, how much they're going to cost, okay. And so you choose a plan that specifies the exact goods and services that you want, and the price you agree to is locked in, and you won't have to pay any more, okay. Now, some of these plans are not guaranteed. You have some that are guaranteed, and you have some that are not guaranteed. And so if you are looking into purchasing a funeral plan, then you want to make sure it's one where it's guaranteed that what you pay for today, it locks in that price, okay. Because the non-guaranteed plans don't offer that protection. And so that means if you choose a casket that costs $3,000 today, and by the time you pass, the least expensive caskets are $6,000, then your loved ones will have to pay that additional $3,000. So you really want to be mindful and read all the fine print if you are looking into getting a funeral plan, okay, a prepaid funeral plan, okay. So real quick, let's go over some pros and cons of prepaid funeral plans, okay. So we'll do the pros first. You'll get a peace of mind by taking care of the details of your funeral, so your loved ones won't have to worry about that after you're gone, okay. Which was really good, because my mama, she kind of planned her, her funeral out, and she had her obituary already written out and everything, so I didn't really have to try to figure out anything. So that was another relief on me, okay. You can arrange the type of funeral that you want, and you can also choose the cemetery plot that you want to lie in, okay. With a guaranteed plan, okay, and remember I said earlier, make sure if you are thinking about purchasing one of these plans, that you find a plan that is a guaranteed plan, okay. So with guaranteed plans, you can lock in today's prices, even if prices go up, okay. And now some people have a funeral home that they're adamant about using. Purchasing a prepaid plan with the prepaid funeral home plan with said funeral home ensures that their final wishes will be honored. Okay. Now, some cons of the prepaid funeral plans is the funeral home will go out of business. I said this earlier. And then that will leave your loved ones with the cost despite your good efforts. Okay. So check with the funeral home before you purchase to see what their process is should the funeral home go out of business. Okay. Now, another con is most prepaid funeral plans don't transfer. Okay. And so if you have a contract with one funeral home and you die in another location or want to move, the funeral home often won't transfer your plan to the new funeral home. Okay. Because you bought it specifically with them, those funds are with them and they're not going to give those funds away. Okay. You may not get a refund if you change your mind about the plan or decide to pay for your final expenses differently. Okay. And then the last con is preparing your funeral expenses prepaying for your funeral expenses does not leave any money for your family to pay for other end-of-life expenses you'll incur, such as medical expenses. Okay. Even if you have health insurance, okay, unless you had met your out-of-pocket max for the year before your death, you're going to have some medical expenses that will be due. And the prepaid, all you did was pay for your service. There's no money left over. Okay. So you want to think about those pros and cons if you are looking into purchasing a prepaid burial plan. Okay. All right. And so that's what a burial plan is. Okay. I hope you found some value in that. If you did find value in it, then please do share it out so that others can find value as well. Now, if you are wanting to get some insurance, okay, you need to have a sit down, a consultation, and you want to try to figure out what would be the best option, the best route for you to go in covering yourself to make sure that your loved ones will be financially able to take care of your final expenses. You can book an insurance consultation with me. You can go to my link tree. It will be in the description of this video. Okay. All right. And so until next time, have a great one. And remember that together we can close the insurance coverage gap for African Americans.